I came home late from work after a brutal day, only to find myself locked out in the dead of night. My wife sends a smug text dash, "Come home early next time." I thought it was some joke until I started freezing in the cold. I called her 1,000 times, but she didn't answer. So I knocked on our neighbor's door, then she let me in with a condition. She whispered in, "Look, I'm not asking for sympathy here, but let me paint you a picture of what absolute rock bottom looks like in human form. It starts with my boss, Gerald. Yeah, Gerald with the coffee breath and the habit of standing way too close when he talks, spending a solid 45 minutes explaining why my quarterly report was lacking vision. Brother, the only thing lacking vision here is your ability to see that nobody, and I mean nobody, cares about pivot tables at 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. But sure, let's workshop my Excel skills while the entire office is mentally already 3 beers deep at O'Malley's down the street. Then comes the printer. You know the one. Every office has that one demonic printer that decides, right when you need it most, that today's the day it identifies as a paperweight. I'm standing there, watching it blink red like it's mocking me, and I swear I heard it whisper, "Paper jam," in the same tone Pennywise says, "We all float down here." 20 minutes of my life, gone, sacrificing virgin toner cartridges to the tech gods just to print out a document I could have emailed. But no, Gerald needs hard copies because apparently, we're cosplaying as a 1987 corporate office. And the vending machine? Oh, that beautiful glass box of lies and broken dreams decided that my last 500 naira. Yeah, I know, we're in the States, but my Nigerian roots run deep and I still think in naira sometimes. Sue me. Anyway, it decided that money was better off disappearing into its mechanical stomach without giving me the Snickers bar I desperately needed. I watched my candy rotate, do a little spin like it was auditioning for Dancing with the Stars, and then just stop. Stuck. Mocking me. At that point, I genuinely considered my life choices. Like, is this what my college degree got me? Standing in front of a vending machine, having a mental breakdown over a candy bar that costs less than a decent coffee? So yeah, that was my day. I left the office around 11:30 p.m. because apparently, just finish up that one thing means sacrifice your entire evening to corporate America, and stepped outside into what I can only describe as nature's personal vendetta against me. The wind wasn't just cold. It was that aggressive kind of cold that finds every gap in your jacket, every moment of exposed skin, and attacks it like a personal insult. My ears went numb within 30 seconds. My nose started running like it was training for a marathon. And my fingers? They gave up on life entirely, turning into these useless frozen sausages attached to my hands. The drive home was miserable. My car's heater, bless its struggling little heart, was putting out air that was technically warmer than the Arctic blast outside, but only technically. Like, if you were choosing between my car heater and a polar bear's breath, you'd have to really think about it. I cranked it up to maximum, and all I got was slightly less cold air and the vague smell of burning plastic. Fantastic. Nothing says successful adult quite like driving home in a vehicle that's one thermostat setting away from catching fire. I pulled into my driveway around midnight, thinking about nothing except getting inside, taking the world's hottest shower, and maybe, just maybe, salvaging what was left of my Friday night with some leftover pizza and whatever garbage reality TV my wife Bianca had recorded. Simple dreams, you know? The dreams of a man who's been beaten down by corporate America and aggressive weather patterns. I walked up to my front door. My front door, to the house I pay rent on, in case that detail becomes important later, which, spoiler alert, it absolutely does, and reached for my keys. Slid the key into the lock, turned it, and nothing. The door didn't budge, not even a little. I stood there for a second, confused, doing that thing where you jiggle the key like maybe you just didn't turn it hard enough the first time. Still nothing. Then I noticed it. The deadbolt was engaged from the inside. From the inside. My first thought was maybe Bianca had locked it by accident. It happens, right? People get distracted, they're watching TV, they absent-mindedly lock the deadbolt. Totally reasonable explanation. Except my phone buzzed right at that moment, and I looked down to see a text from my beloved wife. It said, and I quote, "Come home early next time, winking-faced." I stared at that message for a solid 10 seconds, waiting for the punchline. Because surely, this was a joke. My wife, the woman I married, The woman who promised to love and cherish and not lock me out of my own house during what was basically a weather emergency. She was joking, right? The winky emoji really sold it. Very playful. Very haha. Got you, babe. Now let me in before my extremities start falling off. Except she wasn't joking. I called her. It rang. And rang. And went to voicemail. Hey, this is Bianca. Leave a message. All chipper and cute, like she wasn't currently playing Ice Fortress with her own husband. I hung up, called again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. By the fifth call, I started getting creative with my approach, like maybe if I called from a slightly different angle, the universe would take pity on me. It did not. The wind picked up, and I'm not being dramatic here, but I'm pretty sure I felt my soul try to exit my body through my left ear. I was standing on my own porch, looking at my own door, unable to access my own home, while somewhere inside my wife was doing. What exactly? Watching me freeze through the window? Having the time of her life? Auditioning for America's Next Top Sociopath? By call number 27. Yes, I counted, because at that point counting was the only thing keeping me from having a complete mental breakdown. I started naming each voicemail attempt like they name hurricanes. There goes voicemail Beryl. Oh look, voicemail Cindy's making an appearance. Voicemail Derek's really bringing the pain tonight. It was either that or start crying, and I wasn't ready to give the universe that satisfaction. My dignity, whatever was left of it after the day I'd had, packed its bags and left my body somewhere around call number 30. I was fully aware of how pathetic I looked, standing outside in sub-zero temperatures, phone in hand, probably looking like a rejected door-to-door salesman who'd lost his way. My nose was running, my eyes were watering from the cold, and I'm pretty sure I'd started talking to myself, which is never a great sign. The wind howled, and I mean literally howled, like wolves had gotten together and decided to provide the soundtrack to my misery. And I had this moment of perfect clarity where I realized I was standing outside the house I pay rent for, the house with my name on the lease, looking like a very cold, very confused snowman that someone had built and then immediately regretted. And the worst part? The absolute worst part? I could see the warm glow of lights inside. I could practically feel the heat radiating through the walls. Somewhere in there was my couch, my TV, my hot shower, my leftover pizza, and apparently, my wife who decided tonight was the perfect night for a masterclass in psychological warfare. If you'd told me that morning that this was how my day would end, locked out, frozen, dignity destroyed, naming voicemails like natural disasters, I probably would have just stayed in bed. But hindsight's 2020, and frostbite's apparently very real, and I was about to learn that sometimes the coldest night of your life is just the warm-up act for something way, way worse. So there I was, approximately 3 minutes away from becoming a genuine medical emergency, when I saw it, the porch light next door flickering on like a lighthouse in a storm, except instead of guiding ships to safety, it was guiding one very cold, very desperate husband to the promise of central heating and basic human dignity. Mrs. Linda Dawson's house, my neighbor of about 2 years, the woman I'd exchanged maybe 15 sentences with total, mostly consisting of nice weather and your lawn looks great, was suddenly glowing like the promised land. Now, let me tell you about Linda. She's one of those people who's always been there, but never really there. You know what I mean? Like, I'd see her getting her mail, watering her plants, occasionally bringing in groceries, but she had this aura of mystery around her. Not in a creepy way, more like in a this woman definitely has an interesting backstory, but minds her own business kind of way. She's probably mid-40s, always dressed like she's about to attend a business casual meeting even when she's just checking her mailbox, with this perfectly maintained silver-streaked hair that probably costs more to maintain than my car payment. The kind of woman who makes you feel like you should be more organized just by existing near her. I'd always wondered what her deal was. No husband that I'd ever seen, no kids running around, no visitors except for the occasional delivery guy. She'd moved in about 6 months after Bianca and I did, and in all that time, she'd been nothing but polite, quiet, and completely unremarkable in the best possible way. The perfect neighbor, honestly. Doesn't throw loud parties, keeps her property looking like something out of a home improvement magazine, and apparently, doesn't lock people out of their own houses for sport. My pride was somewhere back around call number 15, so I didn't even hesitate. I stumbled across the lawn, because at this point my legs were basically frozen chopsticks trying to remember how walking worked, and made it to her door. Before I could even knock properly, before my knuckles could make contact with the wood, the door swung open like she'd been watching this whole pathetic display from her window. Which, let's be honest, she probably had been. If I'd been watching my neighbor slowly freeze to death on his own porch for the past 40 minutes, I'd probably be entertained too. Linda stood there in this perfect burgundy sweater and black slacks combo that made me feel even more pathetic in my wrinkled work clothes and defeated posture. But her face wasn't judging me. It was something else. Concern mixed with something I couldn't quite place. Determination, maybe? Or that look someone gets when they've been waiting for the right moment to tell you something important, and that moment just arrived gift-wrapped in hypothermia. "Come in," she said. And her voice had this quality to it that made it sound less like an invitation and more like a command from someone who doesn't give commands often but expects them to be followed when she does. Then she added, "But there's a condition." "Ma'am." At that point, I would have signed over my kidney, my car title, and my Netflix password if it came with access to a working thermostat. I would have joined a cult, started a timeshare presentation career, or agreed to listen to her entire collection of Enya albums on repeat. Whatever she wanted, the answer was yes, absolutely. "Where do I sign? Please just let me feel my toes again." I nodded so vigorously I'm surprised my head didn't fall off, and she stepped aside. The wave of warm air that hit me when I crossed that threshold was like being hugged by God himself. Her living room was this perfect sanctuary of comfort, warm lighting, plush furniture that looked like it actually supported your back instead of slowly destroying your spine, and this smell. Oh man, this smell. Cinnamon and something else, something that smelled like justice and vindication if those concepts had sense. Maybe it was just air freshener, but in my half-frozen state, it smelled like redemption. She guided me to this massive couch that I immediately sank into like it was made of clouds and forgiveness, and disappeared into her kitchen. I heard the kettle going, cabinets opening and closing, and then she emerged with 2 mugs of tea. Not just tea, good tea. The kind that comes in actual ceramic mugs, not chipped ones with ironic statements about Mondays. She handed me one, and I wrapped both hands around it like it was the Holy Grail, feeling the warmth seep back into my fingers. Linda sat down beside me, not across from me like you'd expect from a near stranger, but right beside me on the couch, close enough that I could see she was wearing this expression that definitely meant we weren't about to discuss the weather. She had this look like a lawyer who's about to present evidence that will blow the entire case wide open. My internal alarm bells started ringing, but honestly, I was too comfortable and too warm to care. "She locked you out on purpose," Linda said, her voice quiet but absolutely certain, like she was stating a proven scientific fact rather than making an accusation about my wife. She paused, then added, "And not just to punish you." I blinked at her, my brain still trying to catch up with this sudden shift from nice neighbor offering refuge to nice neighbor dropping psychological bombs. The tea was halfway to my mouth, suspended in midair while I processed what she'd just said. "Excuse me?" I managed to get out, and my voice cracked a little because apparently my vocal cords were also recovering from their near-death experience. Linda didn't answer immediately. Instead, she pulled out her phone, one of those newer iPhones that costs more than some people's monthly rent, and started scrolling through something. Her face was perfectly neutral, but her jaw was set in this way that told me whatever she was about to show me was going to hurt. And not the ouch I stubbed my toe kind of hurt. More like the ouch my entire worldview just shattered into a million pieces kind of hurt. She turned the screen toward me, and for a second, I couldn't process what I was seeing. It was night vision footage, the kind you see on those home security systems that rich people install and forget about. The quality was crystal clear though, almost too clear. Clear enough that I could see it was my front door, my porch, my house. And there was Bianca, my wife, looking nothing like someone who was about to accidentally fall asleep and lock her husband out. She was giggling, actually giggling, like a teenager sneaking her boyfriend past her parents. The timestamp on the video showed last Tuesday, the night I'd texted her that I was working late on the Henderson account. The night I'd actually been working late, legitimately, sitting in a fluorescent-lit conference room, eating vending machine dinner and hating my life. And there she was, opening our front door, letting someone in. Not just someone. A man. Tall, built like he actually used his gym membership instead of just paying for it, and feeling guilty, wearing one of those fitted shirts that guys wear when they want everyone to know they have muscles. I watched them on that tiny screen, watched her touch his arm, watched her lean in and whisper something that made him laugh. Watched them disappear into my house, my living room, probably onto my couch, and suddenly the cold I'd felt outside seemed like nothing compared to the ice spreading through my chest. That was 3 weeks ago, Linda said softly, and I realized my hands were shaking. Not from the cold anymore. I installed the camera after I noticed patterns. Late-night visits when your car wasn't in the driveway. That wasn't the first time. I couldn't speak. My mouth had forgotten how words worked. I just stared at that screen, at my wife's face frozen in mid-laugh, looking happier than I'd seen her look in months. Looking the way she used to look at me, back when things were good, back before we became two people sharing a mortgage and slowly growing to resent each other's existence. There are more, Linda continued, her voice gentle but unflinching, like a surgeon who knows they're about to cut deep but also knows it's necessary. Multiple nights, different occasions. I kept them because. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Because I knew eventually, you'd need to see the truth. And tonight, when she locked you out in this weather, when I saw you standing there calling and calling while she ignored you, I couldn't stay silent anymore. That's not petty. That's not even just cruel. That's calculated. I finally found my voice, though it came out rough and barely recognizable. Show me everything. Linda hesitated for just a moment, searching my face for something. Maybe to see if I could handle it. Maybe to see if I was going to have a breakdown right there on her expensive couch. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her, because she nodded once and started scrolling again. I will, she said. But first, promise me something. When you decide what to do with this information, and you will decide, I can see it in your eyes, don't do it halfway. Don't confront her and let her talk her way out of it. Don't let her make you the villain somehow. People like her? They're experts at flipping the script. So whatever you do, make sure you're ready to see it through to the end. I looked at her, this woman who'd been a virtual stranger an hour ago, and was now handing me evidence of my marriage's destruction like it was a life raft. The warm lighting made her eyes look almost golden, and I realized she wasn't just giving me information, she was giving me a choice. A path forward. Or maybe a path out. I smiled for the first time that entire godforsaken night. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who'd just realized the game they'd been losing without even knowing they were playing. Oh, I never do half measures. I told her, and meant every word. You can ask my electric bill. When I commit to something, I commit. Linda smiled back, and it was the smile of someone who recognized a fellow survivor. Good, she said simply. Then let me show you what your wife's really been up to while you've been working late. I sat there on Linda's cloud couch, staring at her phone screen like it was buffering my entire marriage in real time, complete with that annoying little spinning wheel of death that shows up when your internet's about to give up on life. Except this wasn't buffering. This was loading, crystal clear, in high definition, night vision glory, and every frame was another nail in the coffin of my relationship. Linda swiped to the next video. Same angle, different night. There was Bianca again, wearing that red dress I'd complimented her on back in September, the one she'd said she bought for girls' night out. Apparently, girls' night was code for letting random gym bro into our house while my husband thinks I'm drinking mojitos with Karen from book club. The timestamp read 9:47 p.m., September 14th. I remembered that night. I'd been at that mandatory company dinner with Gerald and his endless stories about his timeshare in Orlando. I'd texted Bianca around 10 saying I'd be home by midnight. She'd responded with a heart emoji. A heart emoji. While Mr. Biceps was probably sitting on my couch, drinking my beer, existing in my space. Jesus, I muttered, and Linda just nodded like she'd been waiting for that exact reaction. There's more, she said, and honestly, at this point, I wasn't sure if I wanted there to be more or if I wanted her to tell me this was all some elaborate prank and Ashton Kutcher was about to jump out from behind her curtains. Spoiler alert, Ashton did not appear, and the hits just kept coming. She showed me another clip. October 3rd, Bianca practically skipping to the door. This time the guy was wearing a jacket, looking around like he was checking if anyone was watching. Amateur hour, buddy. Linda's camera had you in 4K, looking guilty as hell. They disappeared inside again, and I watched the timestamp tick forward. He didn't leave until 1:23 a.m. 1:23 in the morning. I'd been in Chicago that night for a conference, sleeping in a hotel room that smelled like corporate sadness and recycled air, completely oblivious to the fact that my wife was hosting what appeared to be an ongoing affair in our shared living space. "How long have you known?" I asked, and my voice came out flat, emotionless, like my brain had decided feelings were too expensive right now, and we were operating on the basic package. Linda set her phone down on the coffee table, screen side up, so I could still see that frozen frame of Bianca's smiling face. "I suspected something was off about 6 weeks ago," she said. "I work from home most days, you know. Freelance consulting. Means I'm around more than most neighbors. I started noticing a pattern. This car would show up on nights when you weren't home. Always parked 2 houses down, never in your driveway. At first, I thought maybe it was nothing. Maybe a friend visiting. Maybe I was just being a nosy neighbor with too much time on my hands." She picked up her tea, took a slow sip like she was gathering her thoughts, or maybe just giving me time to process. The mug had some inspirational quote on it about living your best life, which felt wildly inappropriate for the current situation, but whatever. I wasn't going to judge her mug choices when she was literally saving me from being the last person on earth to know about my wife's extracurricular activities. But then, Linda continued, "I saw them one night. I was taking out the trash around 11, glamorous life I lead, I know, and I saw her walking him to his car. The way she was looking at him." She trailed off, her expression somewhere between sympathy and disgust. "That wasn't the look of someone entertaining a friend. So I installed the security camera. Took me about 20 minutes, cost me $200 on Amazon, and within a week, I had enough footage to prove I wasn't imagining things." I nodded slowly, trying to wrap my head around the fact that my neighbor had been running surveillance on my cheating wife, like she was part of some neighborhood watch program that took their duties way too seriously. Except I wasn't mad about it. I was grateful. Grateful and also experiencing what I'm pretty sure was the emotional equivalent of being hit by a bus, backing up, and getting hit again just to make sure the first time did enough damage. "Show me the rest," I said, because apparently, I'm a glutton for punishment, or maybe because some part of me needed to see exactly how bad this was. Needed to see every piece of evidence so I couldn't later convince myself I'd overreacted or misunderstood or been too hasty in whatever nuclear option I was about to deploy. Linda didn't argue. She picked up her phone and started going through the folder like she was presenting evidence in court, which, honestly, this might end up being exactly that. Video after video, date after date, a greatest hits collection of my wife's betrayal. There was the night of our anniversary, October 21st. When she told me she wasn't feeling well and suggested I go to the dinner reservation alone or cancel it. I'd canceled, brought home soup, and she'd barely touched it, said she just needed rest. The timestamp on Linda's video showed why. Mr. Muscles had shown up an hour after I'd gone to bed, and they'd spent who knows how long in my living room, doing who knows what, while I slept upstairs like an idiot. There was Halloween night, when she'd said she was too tired to hand out candy, and I'd done it solo, dressed in that ridiculous vampire costume she'd picked out, while she apparently entertained her own kind of monster inside. There was last Tuesday, the night that led to tonight, the night I'd worked late, and she'd worked late on destroying our marriage. The footage showed them laughing, touching, existing in that comfortable way that people do when they've been doing something for a while, when they're not nervous anymore, when they've settled into their routine. "I didn't want to interfere," Linda said quietly, and I could hear genuine conflict in her voice. Part of me thought, who am I to get involved in someone else's marriage? What if I'm wrong? What if there's an explanation? But then tonight happened. When I saw her text you that message, when I saw you standing out there in the cold, calling and calling while she ignored you. She shook her head. That wasn't just infidelity. That was cruelty. That was her enjoying your suffering. And I won't, stand by and watch someone be treated like that. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized this woman barely knew me but had more respect for me than my own wife. This virtual stranger had spent her own money, her own time, collecting evidence to protect someone she'd exchanged maybe 15 conversations with over 2 years. Meanwhile, the woman I'd promised my life to, the woman who promised me hers, was using our home like a cheap motel and our marriage like a joke. "Send me everything," I told Linda, and my voice had this new quality to it, something hard and decisive that I didn't quite recognize, but also didn't hate. It was the voice of someone who'd just watched their old life burn down and was standing in the ashes trying to decide what to build next. Linda nodded and started airdropping files to my phone. My screen lit up with notification after notification, videos downloading, each one a little time bomb of evidence. I watched the progress bars fill, each one representing another night I'd been played, another evening I'd been the fool, another instance of me being the punchline to a joke I didn't know I was part of. "Promise me one thing," Linda said, her eyes intense. "When you burn it down, and I know you will, I can see it in your eyes, don't do it halfway. Don't let her cry her way out of this. Don't let her blame you. Don't let her twist this into somehow being your fault because you worked too much or weren't attentive enough or whatever excuse she tries to sell. People like her, they're masters at playing the victim. They'll make you feel guilty for catching them. So whatever you do, whatever your plan is, see it through completely." I smiled, and it felt good, that smile. It felt like the first genuine emotion I'd had in months that wasn't exhaustion or frustration or that low-level resentment that builds up when you're in a dying relationship, but too stubborn or scared to admit it. This smile was different. This was the smile of someone who'd just been handed the keys to their own liberation and was about to take the most satisfying drive of their life. "Oh, I never do half measures," I said, and meant it down to my bones. "Ask my electric bill. Ask my credit card statement. Ask anyone who knows me. When I commit to something, I commit completely. And right now," I looked down at my phone, at the little folder icon labeled Evidence that Linda had created, containing what had to be dozens of videos. "Right now, I'm committing to making sure Bianca understands exactly what happens when you mistake someone's patience for stupidity." Linda smiled back, and it was the smile of someone who recognized a kindred spirit, someone who understood that sometimes the best response to cruelty isn't more cruelty, it's precision. It's patience. It's planning. It's making sure that when the hammer finally drops, it drops exactly where you want it to, with maximum impact and zero collateral damage to yourself. "Good," she said simply. "Then let me tell you what else I know. Because the videos are just the beginning. I've been paying attention for weeks now. I know his schedule, his car, his patterns. I even know his name." She paused, letting that sink in. "It's Marcus. He works at that gym on Henderson Street. You know the one, with the obnoxious neon sign that looks like it's trying to give everyone seizures? He's one of the trainers there. And based on what I've observed, your wife isn't his only client getting special attention after hours." I laughed, and it came out bitter and sharp. "So she's not even original. She's part of this guy's rotation. That's almost worse somehow." "It is worse," Linda agreed. "Because it means she threw away your marriage for someone who probably can't even spell commitment, let alone understand it. But hey," she raised her mug in a mock toast, "that's information you can use. Knowledge is power and all that." We sat there for a moment in comfortable silence. Two people who'd been strangers an hour ago now bonded by infidelity footage and the mutual understanding that sometimes your neighbors know your life better than you do. My phone buzzed. All the files had finished downloading. I had everything I needed. Evidence, timeline, patterns, even the guy's name and workplace. Bianca had been playing chess while I thought we were playing checkers. But now I knew the whole board. And I was about to show her what happens when the pawn finally realizes he's been a king all along. Dawn broke over my neighborhood like it had no idea it was rising on the first day of my wife's carefully constructed world starting to crumble, which, fair enough, the sun's got its own problems to deal with. I'd spent the rest of the night at Linda's place, on her couch, fully clothed, because despite what my wife might think about appropriate overnight guest behavior, some of us have boundaries. Linda had given me a blanket that smelled like lavender and something expensive, probably fabric softener that costs more per ounce than premium gasoline, and I dozed off around 3 a.m. after watching that video folder so many times I could probably recreate each scene from memory. I woke up around 6:30 to the smell of coffee that definitely wasn't Folgers, and Linda was already up, dressed like she had a board meeting at 7. Even though it was Saturday, and normal people were still in their pajamas contemplating whether Lucky Charms counted as a balanced breakfast. She handed me a mug without saying anything, just gave me this look that said, "You ready for this?" And honestly, I wasn't sure if I was ready, but I was definitely committed, which is basically the same thing when you're running on 3 hours of sleep and pure spite. "Thank you." I told her, meaning it for way more than just the coffee. For everything. For the evidence. For the couch. For not thinking I'm crazy when I inevitably burn my entire life down today. She smiled. And it was one of those knowing smiles that made me think she'd probably been through something similar in her mysterious past. Just remember what I said. All the way through, no half measures. And if you need anything, an alibi, a witness, someone to help you change the locks, you know where I live. I nodded, drank that heavenly coffee that probably cost more than my car payment, and headed home. The walk across the lawn felt different than it had 12 hours ago. Last night, I'd been a desperate, frozen husband begging to be let into his own house. This morning I was a man with a plan, a folder full of evidence, and absolutely nothing left to lose except a wife I was rapidly realizing I didn't actually want to keep. I used my key, because apparently, the deadbolt was no longer engaged. How convenient, and walked in like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't spent half the night outside turning into a human popsicle. Like I hadn't spent the other half watching my marriage dissolve in night vision footage. The house was quiet. That early morning quiet where everything feels suspended and peaceful, completely unaware that a Category 5 hurricane named Consequences was about to make landfall. I heard movement upstairs around 7:15, the familiar sounds of Bianca's morning routine. Shower running, hairdryer humming, closet doors opening and closing as she no doubt selected the perfect, I definitely didn't lock my husband out in freezing temperatures last night outfit. I busied myself in the kitchen, because nothing says, I'm not plotting your downfall, quite like making breakfast for someone you're about to systematically destroy. I made eggs, scrambled, the way she likes them, with that fancy cheese she insists on buying from Whole Foods that costs approximately $1 million per ounce. I made toast, perfectly golden, not too dark. I even brewed her favorite tea, that overpriced hibiscus situation that tastes like flowers dyed in hot water, but she swears is cleansing. I set the table like we were in some kind of domestic sitcom, like I was the loving husband preparing a surprise breakfast for his beloved wife, not a man who'd spent the night documenting every instance of her betrayal. She floated down the stairs around 7:45, and I use the word floated because that's exactly what she did. She was wearing this casual but cute outfit that probably took her 30 minutes to make look effortless. Her hair was perfect, her makeup was subtle but present, and she had this expression on her face like she'd slept great and life was wonderful, and she definitely wasn't a terrible person. She looked happy, relaxed, like someone without a care in the world or a guilty conscience in her body. "Morning," she said, and her voice had that sing-song quality that people use when they're in a good mood. Probably because they successfully psychologically tortured their spouse the night before and got away with it. "Morning," I replied, matching her tone exactly, like we were in a play and both reading from the same script titled Everything is Fine, a comedy in one act. She sat down at the table, looked at the spread I'd prepared, and her eyes widened slightly. "Wow, what's all this? Did you get a promotion or something?" "Nope," I said cheerfully, setting a plate in front of her with a smile that I'm pretty sure looked genuine because I've been practicing my not plotting revenge face in the mirror for the past hour. "Just thought I'd make breakfast. You know, be spontaneous. Romantic. All those things married people are supposed to do." She laughed, actually laughed, like I'd told a joke instead of making a thinly veiled reference to the fact that our marriage was about as romantic as a dental procedure at this point. "Well, it's sweet. Thank you, honey." "Honey." She called me honey. The audacity was actually impressive. "So," she said, taking a bite of eggs and making an appreciative sound that made me want to tell her those eggs were seasoned with deception and garnished with irony. "Rough night last night? You look tired." "Oh, we're doing this. We're really doing this." I took a sip of my coffee, nowhere near as good as Linda's, but it would do, and nodded. "Yeah, you could say that. Traffic was insane coming home. And then it was so cold, felt like I was standing outside forever." I watched her face carefully. She didn't even flinch. Just kept eating her eggs like I hadn't just given her the perfect opening to apologize, explain, or show even the tiniest shred of remorse. "Oh, that's rough," she said, with all the sympathy of someone commenting on someone else's mildly inconvenient day, not the sympathy of someone who deliberately locked their husband out during what was basically Arctic conditions. "Yeah, it was freezing last night. I'm glad I was inside where it was warm." The emphasis on inside and warm felt deliberate, like she was twisting the knife just to see if I'd react. I didn't give her the satisfaction. Must have been nice, I said, and I kept my voice level, pleasant, completely neutral. Being all cozy while I was out there dealing with the elements. Global betrayal levels of cold, you know? She paused, fork halfway to her mouth, and I saw something flicker across her face. Confusion? Suspicion? The faint recognition that maybe I'd just said something with multiple meanings? But it passed quickly, replaced by that same casual smile. Global betrayal? She repeated, laughing. That's dramatic. It's just winter. You're right. I agreed easily. I'm being dramatic. Must be the lack of sleep. Being locked out really takes it out of you. Locked out. She had the nerve to look confused, like she was an Oscar-nominated actress auditioning for the role of innocent wife who would never. Oh my God, was the door locked? I must have fallen asleep. I'm so sorry, baby. Why didn't you call me? Baby. She called me baby. I wanted to pull out my phone and show her my call log. All 27 attempts. All 27 times she'd let it ring through to voicemail, while she was presumably doing whatever one does when they lock their husband out on purpose. I tried, I said, and I let just enough edge into my voice to make it interesting without being accusatory. Multiple times, actually. But you must have really been out cold. Deep sleeper, my wife. She had the decency to look mildly apologetic, though it was about as genuine as a $3 bill. I'm sorry, I must have had my phone on silent. That's awful. You should have knocked louder or something. Oh, I knocked, I assured her. The door was too busy being a fortress to notice. Deadbolt and everything. Very secure. Almost like someone locked it deliberately. There it was again, that flicker of something in her eyes. But she recovered quickly, took another bite of toast, and shrugged. Well, you know I always lock up before bed. Safety first and all that. I probably just forgot you weren't home yet. Forgot I wasn't home. At midnight. When I'd texted her at 11 saying I was on my way. When she'd responded with that smug little winky face emoji that now felt like it should be used as evidence in court under the category of premeditated spousal cruelty. Right? I said, nodding like this made perfect sense, like I wasn't currently sitting across from someone who'd elevated lying to an art form. Safety first. Can't be too careful these days. Never know who might try to get into your house uninvited. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a butter knife, but she either didn't catch it or pretended not to. She just smiled, finished her eggs, and complimented my cooking like we were a normal couple having a normal breakfast instead of a man and a woman engaged in the world's most passive-aggressive conversation. These eggs are really good, she said. You should cook more often. Maybe I will, I replied. I've got all this free time now. Might take up some new hobbies. Photography, maybe. Or video editing. I hear surveillance footage is really popular these days. She blinked at me, and for just a second, just one beautiful second, I saw uncertainty cross her face. But then it was gone, replaced by that same casual demeanor that said she was either completely oblivious or playing her own game. Surveillance footage? She laughed. What? Are you going to become a security guard now? No, I said, finishing my coffee and standing up to clear the plates. Just thinking about how interesting it is, you know? How cameras can capture things you never even knew were happening. All those moments you think are private, but someone's watching, recording, collecting evidence. I took her plate, our hands brushed, and she looked up at me with what might have been affection or might have been calculation. I honestly couldn't tell anymore and wasn't sure I cared. You're being weird this morning, she said, and it sounded like an accusation wrapped in a joke. Am I? I loaded the dishwasher, taking my time, making sure every dish was perfectly placed because I had nothing but time now. Time and evidence, and a growing sense of satisfaction that came from knowing something she didn't know I knew. I think I'm being perfectly normal. Just a husband making breakfast for his wife, having a totally ordinary conversation about totally ordinary things like deadbolts and surveillance, and the weather. She stood up, grabbed her purse, checked her phone, probably looking for messages from Marcus, though she'd never know I knew his name now, knew where he worked, knew everything. Well, I've got errands to run. Hair appointment, then meeting Sarah for lunch. Sarah. Right. Sarah, who definitely existed and definitely wasn't code for meeting my gym trainer boyfriend for an afternoon of activities that would make the footage Linda showed me look tame. Have fun, I told her, and I smiled. Genuinely smiled. because every minute she was gone was another minute I had to plan, prepare, and set the stage for the greatest told you so moment of my entire life. She kissed my cheek, actually kissed my cheek, like we were some happily married couple from a commercial for life insurance or cottage cheese, and headed for the door. "Oh, and honey?" I called after her, and she turned, hand on the doorknob. "Next time you want to lock me out, maybe check the weather forecast first. Hypothermia is a bad look on me." She laughed like I'd made another joke, blew me a kiss, and left. I stood there in my kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of breakfast with a liar, and pulled out my phone. Linda had texted me. "How'd it go?" I typed back. "She has no idea. Operation Oscar-worthy performance is officially underway." 3 dots appeared, then, "Attaboy. Keep me posted." I looked around my house, my fortress that had become a prison, my home that had become a stage for someone else's betrayal, and I smiled. Because Bianca thought she was winning. She thought she'd gotten away with it, thought I was just the oblivious husband who'd accept any excuse, believe any lie, swallow any story she fed me. But the thing about underestimating people? Eventually, they surprise you. And I was about to become the most surprising thing that ever happened to Bianca's carefully constructed world of lies. So here's the thing about deciding to systematically dismantle someone's life. It requires patience, planning, and a level of calculated coolness that I honestly didn't know I possessed until approximately 72 hours ago. Turns out, being betrayed unlocks character traits you never knew existed, like suddenly becoming a strategic mastermind who operates with the precision of a Swiss watch and the emotional detachment of a particularly ambitious chess player. I spent the weekend playing the role of world's most attentive husband, and let me tell you, I deserved every award that doesn't exist for this performance. I made Bianca coffee in the morning, asked about her day with genuine-sounding interest, laughed at her stories that were probably 50% fabricated, and even suggested we watch one of those reality shows she loves where people argue about who said what at whose birthday party. I was so convincing that I almost convinced myself I wasn't currently running the most elaborate counter-operation since the Trojan horse, except instead of a horse, I was using kindness as my weapon, and instead of soldiers, I was armed with surveillance footage and pure spite. Monday morning, I transformed into James Bond, except instead of fancy gadgets and a license to kill, I had Amazon Prime and a license to document. I'd spent Sunday night researching the best discrete recording devices, reading reviews like I was preparing for a doctoral thesis on how to catch your cheating wife without her noticing, a comprehensive study. By noon on Monday, I had ordered 2 voice-activated recorders, small enough to hide under furniture, battery life of 24 hours, 5-star reviews from people who were clearly also living in soap operas, 1 motion sensor camera disguised as a phone charger, because apparently that's a thing that exists and I love technology, and a GPS tracker that I wasn't sure I'd use, but ordered anyway because when you're going full surveillance mode, you might as well commit to the aesthetic. The packages arrived Tuesday with that beautiful Amazon efficiency that makes you wonder why they can deliver spy equipment in 24 hours, but your regular orders take a week. I spent Tuesday afternoon setting up my new operation while Bianca was at yoga class, which, based on the pattern Linda had established, probably meant she was at the gym with Marcus doing exercises that definitely weren't yoga, unless yoga had suddenly become a lot more horizontal and significantly less spiritual. I planted the first recorder under our living room couch, right in that little space where the fabric meets the frame, where nobody ever looks unless they're searching for lost remote controls or their dignity. The second one went under our bedroom nightstand, tucked behind the leg where it was invisible unless you got on your hands and knees. And let's be honest, the only person getting on their hands and knees in this house lately was probably me looking for my self-respect. The camera/phone charger went right on the kitchen counter, plugged in and functioning, looking exactly like a normal phone charger except it was recording everything in glorious 1080p. I even plugged my actual phone into it to test it, and it worked perfectly. Charged my phone while simultaneously charging my revenge plan. Beautiful synergy. I set up the app on my phone that connected to all these devices, and suddenly I had access to real-time audio and video of my own house. It felt weird, honestly, like I was spying on my own life, which I guess technically I was, except I was really spying on my wife's secret life that she was conducting in my space, with my furniture, probably using my Wi-Fi. The disrespect was almost impressive. Wednesday morning, I kissed Bianca goodbye and told her I loved her, and I watched her face as she said it back, trying to detect any guilt, any hesitation, any sign that she felt even remotely bad about what she was doing. Nothing. Just that same smile, that same casual affection that you'd give to a roommate you mildly tolerate. I was basically furniture to her at this point, functional, present, but ultimately ignorable. I got to work and spent the first hour pretending to care about the quarterly projections Gerald was rambling about while secretly checking my phone under my desk like a teenager in class. The app was working perfectly. I could see my empty living room, hear the hum of our refrigerator, watch our cat Mr. Whiskers, who, by the way, was the only loyal creature in that house, walk across the kitchen counter like he owned the place. Around lunchtime, my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I opened the app, and there she was. Bianca, home in the middle of the day when she'd told me she had back-to-back meetings until 5. She was on her phone, smiling at the screen with that expression that I used to think she reserved for me, but now realized she probably gave to anyone who wasn't actively annoying her. She was typing something, laughing to herself, completely oblivious to the fact that I was watching her from 12 miles away while eating a sad desk sandwich that tasted like betrayal and mustard. Then I switched to the audio feed from the living room, and I heard her voice, crystal clear, talking on the phone. "No, he's at work. Yeah, he left early. I know, right? Tonight works perfect. 7:30. Can't wait." I sat there in my cubicle, watching the fluorescent lights flicker overhead, listening to my wife arrange what was clearly another rendezvous, and I felt this strange calm wash over me. Not anger. I'd moved past anger somewhere around Sunday. This was something else. This was clarity. This was the feeling you get when you realize you're not crazy, you're not paranoid, you're not overreacting. You're just finally seeing the truth in high definition with surround sound. I saved the audio file, labeled it Wednesday lunch, phone call, and added it to my growing folder of evidence that was starting to look like I was preparing for actual court proceedings, which, let's be honest, I probably was. That evening, I came home at 6, giving myself plenty of time before her 7:30 appointment with disappointment. I found Bianca in the bedroom, getting ready, wearing this outfit that was definitely not what you wear to meet your cousin for dinner, which is what she'd told me her plans were. "You look nice," I said, because I'm apparently a masochist who enjoys complimenting people who are actively betraying me. "Thanks," she said, checking herself in the mirror, adjusting her hair for the 47th time. "Just want to look decent, you know." "For your cousin," I added, just to see if she'd crack. "Right, for Michelle. She's so judgmental about appearances." Michelle. Her cousin Michelle, who lived in Oregon and definitely wasn't in town, because I'd checked her Instagram that morning like the thorough investigator I'd become, and she'd posted a story from Portland approximately 3 hours ago. But sure, "Bianca, tell me more about this dinner you're having with your geographically impossible cousin." She left at 7:15, kissed me goodbye, told me not to wait up. I watched her pull out of the driveway, waited exactly 3 minutes, then checked the GPS tracker I'd, okay, fine, I admit it, attached to her car on Tuesday night while she was sleeping. The little blue dot on my phone screen moved through our neighborhood, turned onto Henderson Street, and stopped right in front of that obnoxious gym with the neon sign that looked like it was designed by someone who'd never experienced a migraine, but wanted everyone else to. Bingo. I screenshotted the location, added it to my folder, and then did something I hadn't done in months. I ordered myself a really good dinner. Not sad takeout. Not whatever leftovers were in the fridge. I went on that fancy restaurant's website, the one Bianca always said was too expensive for a random weeknight, and I ordered their filet mignon with truffle butter, the loaded mashed potatoes, and a slice of that chocolate cake that probably cost more than my car insurance deductible. I ate that meal in my living room, on my couch, under which was hidden a recorder that would probably never be used now because Bianca clearly preferred to conduct her extracurricular activities elsewhere, and I savored every bite. The steak was perfect, medium rare, seasoned beautifully, melting in my mouth like butter. The potatoes were creamy and rich, and everything mashed potatoes should be. The cake was divine, probably illegal in some states because nothing that good should be allowed to exist without a prescription. I ate slowly, deliberately, checking my phone occasionally to watch that little blue dot stay parked at the gym, occasionally moving. Probably from the parking lot to inside, or maybe around back, where the private training rooms were, which I'd learned about from a helpful Google review that mentioned how discreet and private they were. Perfect for people who wanted to work on their core strength and their moral flexibility simultaneously. Around 10 p.m., the blue dust started moving again, heading back toward our house. I finished my cake, cleared my dishes like the responsible adult I was, and got into bed with a book. Not because I was going to read it. I couldn't focus on words right now even if they were written in neon lights, but because it made me look casual, unbothered, like a husband who definitely wasn't tracking his wife's every movement with GPS and surveillance equipment. She came home at 10:23, and I heard her come upstairs, heard her in the bathroom, heard her get into bed beside me. "How was your dinner?" I asked, not looking up from my book. "Good," she said. "Michelle says hi. She asked about you." "That's nice of geographically impossible Michelle," I muttered. "What? Nothing." Said that's nice of her. Tell her I said hi back. Next time she's definitely not in town, we should all grab dinner. She looked at me weird, probably trying to figure out if I was being sarcastic or if I'd finally just lost my mind entirely from being married to her. To be fair, both options were valid at this point. "You okay?" she asked, and it might have been my imagination, but she sounded almost nervous. "Never better," I said, smiling at her in the darkness. "Just thinking about how interesting life is. How you never really know what's going on around you until you start paying attention. It's fascinating, really. The things people do when they think nobody's watching." "You're being weird again," she said, rolling over to face away from me. "Am I? Huh. Must be all that paying attention I've been doing. Tends to make a person weird when they suddenly notice things they missed before." She didn't respond, just pulled the covers up higher, and within minutes, she was asleep. Or pretending to be asleep. I couldn't tell anymore, and honestly didn't care. I lay there in the dark, my phone on the nightstand with its folder full of evidence, my house wired with devices that would make the NSA jealous, and my marriage circling the drain like water after you pull the plug. But here's the thing, I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was just ready. Ready for whatever came next. Ready to stop being the fool in this story and start being the plot twist nobody saw coming. I fell asleep that night with a smile on my face, because tomorrow was Thursday, and Thursday was when everything would start accelerating toward the inevitable conclusion that Bianca had been writing with her own choices but hadn't realized she was about to get the ending she deserved instead of the one she expected. Thursday afternoon, my phone lit up with a text from Linda that made me smile in the middle of Gerald's presentation about synergizing our core competencies, which, for the record, is corporate speak for, I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm going to use big words and hope nobody notices. The text read, "Made too much lasagna. Need help finishing it. 7 p.m. Translation, War Room Meeting. Bring your evidence and your appetite." I texted back a thumbs up emoji, because apparently, my life had become a spy thriller directed by someone with a really good sense of humor and an unlimited budget for pasta-based plot devices. I spent the rest of the afternoon pretending to work while actually organizing my evidence folder into categories. Video evidence, audio files, GPS tracking data, and my personal favorite, screenshots of lies. I was basically building a presentation that would make Gerald's quarterly reports look like amateur hour, which, to be fair, they already were. I left work at 5:30, early for me, but I'd earned it after the week I'd had. And also Gerald was starting another monologue about leveraging our bandwidth, and I was about to leverage my foot into his bandwidth if I didn't get out of there. I went home, changed out of my work clothes into something casual, and told Bianca I was heading to Tyler's place to watch the game. "Which game?" she asked, barely looking up from her phone, probably texting Marcus about their next workout session that had nothing to do with actual exercise. "The important one," I said vaguely, because honestly, I had no idea what sport was even in season right now, and apparently, neither did Bianca because she just nodded and went back to her phone. "Have fun," she said, and I thought about how she'd been saying that a lot lately. Have fun, enjoy yourself, don't rush back. Basically code for please leave so I can do whatever I want without your inconvenient presence. Well, joke's on you, sweetheart, because I was about to have the time of my life plotting your social demise over homemade Italian food. I walked across the lawn to Linda's house at exactly 7 p.m. because punctuality is important when you're attending a strategic planning session disguised as a dinner party. Linda opened the door before I could knock. She had this sixth sense about timing that made me think she'd probably been a spy in a past life, or maybe a really efficient executive assistant. "Come in," she said, and I followed her into her kitchen, which smelled absolutely incredible. Like, the kind of smell that makes you reconsider every life choice that led you to eating microwave leftovers and gas station sandwiches. Her kitchen was immaculate. Everything had its place. The counters were clear except for the necessities. And there was this gorgeous lasagna sitting on the stove that looked like it belonged in a magazine spread about meals that make your problems disappear. "That smells amazing," I said, and I meant it. "You really made too much? Or was that just code for come over so we can plot revenge?" Linda laughed, and it was this genuine, warm laugh that made me realize I'd been missing that sound. The sound of someone actually enjoying my company instead of tolerating it. "Little bit of both," she admitted. "I did make too much. Cooking for one means I always overshoot. But also, yes, I thought we should discuss your next steps." "Why? Is that even a question at this point?" I replied, and she poured me a glass of red that probably cost more than my monthly utility bill. It tasted like sophistication and good life choices, two things that had been seriously lacking in my recent existence. We sat down at her dining table. Actual dining table, not eating on the couch situation like I'd been doing. And she served up portions of lasagna that were generous without being overwhelming. The first bite was life-changing. I'm talking layers of perfectly cooked pasta, rich meat sauce, creamy cheese that had been blended by actual angels, and this balance of flavors that made me want to cry a little bit, though that might have also been the emotional week I'd been having. "This is incredible," I said, probably with my mouth half full, because manners had taken a back seat to experiencing the best lasagna of my entire life. Like, genuinely incredible. "You could charge money for this." "I did, actually," Linda said, taking a sip of her wine. "Used to run a catering business before I switched to consulting. Turns out people will pay obscene amounts of money for good food and the illusion of sophistication." "Well, they were right too," I said, taking another bite and trying to figure out what the secret ingredient was. "Seriously, this is better than anything I've had at a restaurant. The secret is fresh herbs and not skimping on the good cheese," she said. "Also, making it with love instead of resentment helps. I imagine that's hard to do when you're cooking for someone who's actively betraying you." And just like that, we went from food appreciation to the real reason I was there. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table. "Between us. So, I've been busy," I said. "Very busy, actually. Turns out heartbreak and spite are excellent motivators for becoming tech-savvy." Linda leaned forward, interested, and I walked her through everything. The recorders, the camera, the GPS tracker, the audio I'd captured, the locations I'd documented. I showed her the screenshot from Wednesday night, the blue dot parked at the gym for 3 hours. I played her some of the audio of Bianca on the phone, making plans, laughing, being the version of herself that she apparently reserved for people who weren't me. "Wow," Linda said when I finished, and she looked genuinely impressed. "You went full covert ops. I'm proud of you." Most people would have just confronted her by now, gotten into a screaming match, and ended up being the bad guy somehow. "That's what she wants," I said, surprising myself with how clearly I'd thought this through. "She wants me to be the angry, jealous husband who overreacted. She wants to be able to tell people I was controlling, suspicious, unreasonable. But if I come at her with evidence, with documentation, with a timeline and proof and GPS coordinates, she can't spin that. She can't make herself the victim when I've got receipts." "Exactly," Linda said, nodding approvingly. "You're learning. So what's your next move? You've got the evidence. You've got the paper trail. Are you ready to make a move, or are you waiting for something specific?" I took a long sip of wine, considering. The truth was, I had been waiting for something, though I hadn't quite articulated what it was until that moment. "I want it public," I said finally. "I don't want this to be some private drama where we quietly separate and she gets to control the narrative. I want people to know. I want everyone who's been looking at me like I'm the oblivious idiot husband to understand that I wasn't oblivious. I was strategic." Linda's eyes lit up like I'd just said exactly what she was hoping to hear. "Public scandal," she said. "I like it. But you have to be careful. Go too big, and you look vindictive. Go too small, and nobody notices. You need something that feels organic, like the information just happened to get out there." "The neighborhood block party," I said suddenly, remembering the invitation that had been sitting on our counter for 2 weeks. It's next Saturday. Everyone will be there. All the neighbors, local people, community folks. Very public, very social, very perfect for information to spread organically. Linda grinned, and it was the grin of someone who appreciated a well-executed plan. The block party, she repeated. That's actually genius. Very community-focused. I'm just being social and definitely not orchestrating someone's public downfall. Right. I was getting excited now. The wine and the lasagna and the validation making me feel more alive than I had in months. And the best part is, people already suspect something. You said so yourself. You've seen them looking cozy in public. So I'm not creating a scandal out of nothing. I'm just confirming what people already think they know. And giving them proof, Linda added. Because suspicion is one thing, but proof? Proof is what makes gossip turn into fact. Proof is what makes people take sides. And trust me, with what you've got, they're going to take your side. We spent the next hour planning like we were Ocean's 11. Except instead of robbing a casino, we were orchestrating the controlled demolition of my wife's reputation. Linda suggested creating an anonymous email, untraceable, professional, just screenshots and timestamps with minimal commentary. Let the evidence speak for itself, she said. Don't editorialize. Don't be emotional. Just facts, dates, locations. People will fill in the blanks themselves. And timing? I asked, pouring us both more wine because this lasagna summit was turning into the most productive meeting I'd had all year. Day of the block party, Linda said without hesitation. Morning of, actually. Give people time to see it, process it, start talking about it. By the time the party starts, everyone will know, but they'll all be pretending they don't. The tension will be delicious. I laughed, actually laughed, and it felt good. You're kind of devious, you know that? I prefer strategically minded, she replied, raising her glass. But yes, I've been told I have a talent for understanding how information spreads. Comes from years of watching people, I guess. You learn patterns. You learn how to use those patterns. Well, I'm glad you're using your powers for good, I said, clinking my glass against hers. Or at least, for my version of good, which involves publicly exposing infidelity at a neighborhood social event. To be fair, Linda said, she exposed herself. We're just making sure everyone sees what was already happening. That's not revenge, that's transparency. Transparency. I repeated, liking the sound of that. That's what I'll tell my therapist when this is all over and I'm unpacking the emotional aftermath. We finished the lasagna, every last bite, because it was too good to waste, and moved to her living room with our wine. Linda pulled up something on her laptop, and I saw it was more footage, newer stuff I hadn't seen yet. I kept recording, she explained. Figured you'd want everything. This is from last night. She hit play, and there they were again, Bianca and Marcus, in the parking lot of that gym, visible under the streetlight. They were talking, standing close, and then he leaned in and kissed her. Not a friendly kiss. Not a see-you-later kiss. A full-on, hand in her hair, pressed against his car kind of kiss that made it very clear this wasn't just an emotional affair or a one-time mistake. This was a whole relationship, complete with parking lot makeout sessions, and probably pet names and inside jokes, and all the things that were supposed to be reserved for the person you actually married. I watched it without flinching, without feeling that gut punch I would have felt a week ago. Now it just felt like more evidence, more ammunition, more proof that I wasn't crazy or paranoid or overreacting. Send that to me too, I said calmly. That's going in the file. Linda nodded and airdropped it over. You're handling this really well, she observed. Most people would be falling apart by now. I fell apart already, I told her honestly. That first night, standing outside in the cold, realizing what was happening, I fell apart then. But you can't stay falling apart forever. Eventually, you have to get up, dust yourself off, and decide what you're going to do with the pieces. And I decided I'm going to use them to build something better, even if that means burning down what was there first. Linda smiled, and there was something in her expression that made me think she understood exactly what I meant, like she'd been through her own version of this and come out the other side. To new beginnings, she said, raising what was left of her wine. To warm nights and locked doors, I replied, remembering that first terrible night that had somehow led to this moment, sitting in a comfortable house, eating incredible food, planning the most satisfying conclusion to the worst chapter of my life. We clinked glasses, and somewhere across the lawn, in my house, my wife was probably on her phone, texting Marcus, making more plans, completely oblivious to the fact that her whole world was about to change. And honestly, I couldn't wait to watch it happen. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of perfect weather that makes you think the universe has a sense of dramatic timing. Clear skies, gentle breeze, temperature in the low 70s. Basically the kind of day that's ideal for neighborhood block parties and, apparently, for watching your carefully constructed lies collapse in real time. I woke up at 6 a.m., not because I'd set an alarm, but because my body had apparently decided that today was too important to waste on sleep. Adrenaline is a hell of a drug, and I was mainlining it. Bianca was still asleep, sprawled across her side of the bed like she didn't have a care in the world, which, to be fair, she didn't yet. I slipped out quietly, grabbed my phone, and headed downstairs to make coffee. The good stuff, not the grocery store brand we usually drank. Today felt like a special occasion, the kind that deserved premium beans and the satisfaction of knowing you're about to become the most interesting person at a community gathering. At 7 a.m. exactly, I opened my laptop and pulled up the anonymous email account Linda and I had created 3 days ago. Username, Concerned Neighbor 2024. Email provider, one of those encrypted services that people use when they're either running a revolutionary movement or exposing their cheating spouse. In our case, same energy, different context. I'd spent the past 2 nights crafting the perfect email. Not too wordy, people don't read essays. Not too emotional, nobody trusts hysteria. Just facts, timestamps, and attachments. The subject line read, information regarding recent neighborhood activity. Professional. Vague. Intriguing. The kind of subject line that makes people open emails even when they probably shouldn't. The body was simple. Attached are documented instances of inappropriate conduct occurring within our community. Dates, times, and locations are provided. No further commentary is necessary. The evidence speaks for itself. Then came the attachments. Oh, the beautiful, glorious attachments. 12 screenshots from Linda's security footage, each one time-stamped and date-stamped, showing Bianca and Marcus entering my house on various occasions. 3 audio files of phone conversations where she was clearly making plans. 5 GPS tracking maps showing her car parked at the gym during times she'd told me she was elsewhere. And the grand finale, that parking lot kiss from Thursday night, captured in perfect clarity, looking like a promotional still from a movie about terrible people making terrible choices. The recipient list was a masterpiece of strategic selection. Our neighborhood has this community email group. One of those things that started for important updates about HOA meetings and lost pets, but devolved into people complaining about garbage pickup schedules and bragging about their kids' soccer achievements. Everyone in a 3-block radius was on it. Approximately 47 households. 47 chances for this information to spread like wildfire through dry grass. My finger hovered over the send button for approximately 10 seconds. This was it. The point of no return. Once I hit send, there was no taking it back, no claiming it was a misunderstanding, no pretending everything was fine. This was the nuclear option, and I was about to press the big red button. I pressed send. The email whooshed off into the digital universe at 7:02 a.m., and I sat there for a moment, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise through my kitchen window like I hadn't just lit a match and tossed it into my wife's carefully maintained social life. It felt weirdly peaceful, actually, like the calm before a storm, except I was the one who'd ordered the storm and paid for express delivery. I spent the next hour doing completely normal Saturday morning things, reading the news, making breakfast, pretending my heart wasn't racing every time I thought about those 47 households opening their emails. By 8:30, my phone buzzed. Text from Tyler, my coworker and actual friend who lived 2 streets over. Bro, just saw something in the neighborhood email. That can't be. I texted back. What did you see? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Screenshots of someone's wife with another dude. Multiple dates. GPS data. Audio files. This is insane. Do you know about this? Just saw it myself. I lied smoothly, because the key to any good strategic operation is plausible deniability. Crazy, right? Crazy doesn't even cover it. People are going wild in the group chat. Mrs. Henderson from number 47 is demanding to know who sent it. Someone else is saying we should respect people's privacy. But bro, if that's who I think it is. My heart rate kicked up a notch. Who do you think it is? I don't want to say. But, I mean, I've seen that house before in the background. And that car looks familiar. This is going to be so awkward at the block party today. I smiled into my coffee. Awkward. Yes, that's exactly what it was going to be. By 9 a.m., my phone was buzzing constantly. Not with direct messages. People weren't quite ready to approach me yet, but with notifications from the neighborhood group chat that had apparently exploded into chaos. I opened it and scrolled through, watching in real time as my plan unfolded exactly as Linda had predicted. Mrs. Henderson, this is inappropriate for a community email list. Dave from number 33. But is nobody going to talk about what's actually in those screenshots? Jennifer, the yoga mom who always bragged about her organic kale. I think I know whose house that is grimacing face. Random dad whose name I never learned. This is better than Netflix. Sarah K. Guys, maybe we should delete this? It feels invasive. Mike, owner of 3 loud dogs. Invasive is cheating on your spouse. This is just documentation. And on it went. A beautiful cascade of reactions ranging from pearl clutching to popcorn emoji posting. The best part? Nobody had directly named Bianca yet, but everyone was dancing around it, making vague references, posting thinking face emojis. It was like watching people solve a puzzle in real time. Except the puzzle was my marriage, and the solution was extremely obvious to anyone with functioning eyesight. Around 10 a.m., I heard Bianca stirring upstairs. I quickly closed the group chat and went back to looking like someone who was casually reading about local sports and definitely not monitoring the viral spread of his wife's affair through their community. She came downstairs in her pajamas, yawning, looking adorable and completely unaware that her world had already shifted on its axis. Morning, she said, heading straight for the coffee pot. What time's the block party? Starts at noon, I said, keeping my voice neutral. We should probably head over around 12:30, fashionably late, and all that. She agreed, pouring herself coffee. I'm not really in the mood for small talk with neighbors today, honestly. Might just make a quick appearance and bail. I bit back a laugh. Oh, I don't think small talk is going to be the problem, I muttered. What? Nothing. Just said I think the Johnsons are bringing their famous potato salad. Should be good. She nodded, scrolling through her phone, probably checking messages from Marcus about when they could meet next, completely oblivious to the digital wildfire spreading through our neighborhood. I watched her face, waiting for the moment when she'd check the community email, when she'd see the group chat, when reality would finally catch up with her. It happened at 10:47 a.m. I was pretending to read the newspaper. Who even reads physical newspapers anymore? But I grabbed it from the driveway specifically to have something to hide behind, when I heard her make this small sound. Not quite a gasp, not quite a choke, somewhere between surprise and horror. I peeked over the top of the sports section and saw her staring at her phone, face going progressively paler. Something wrong? I asked innocently. She looked up at me, and I saw about 17 different emotions flash across her face in rapid succession. Shock, confusion, anger, fear, and something that might have been the dawning realization that she was absolutely screwed. Did you see the neighborhood email this morning? Her voice was tight, controlled, like she was trying very hard not to sound panicked. No, I don't usually check that until later. Why, something important? She stared at me for a long moment, and I could practically see her brain working overtime, trying to figure out if I was genuinely clueless or playing dumb. Someone sent out some pictures and videos. Of what? I prompted, lowering my newspaper slightly, letting just enough concern show on my face to seem believable. Of people in the neighborhood being inappropriate. Inappropriate how? Just inappropriate, she snapped, and there was the anger bubbling up through the panic. Someone's being a creep with a camera, apparently. It's an invasion of privacy. Huh, I said thoughtfully. That does sound concerning. What kind of pictures are we talking about? She stood abruptly, coffee forgotten. I need to make some calls, she said, already heading back upstairs, phone clutched in her hand like a life preserver. I listened to her footsteps racing up the stairs, heard our bedroom door close, heard the muffled sound of her voice talking urgently to someone. Probably Marcus, probably panicking together about how their secret wasn't so secret anymore. My phone buzzed again. Linda this time. I'm watching the group chat. This is magnificent. She know yet? I texted back. Just found out. Currently upstairs in crisis mode. Perfect. See you at the party? Bringing my famous brownies. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Around 11:30, Tyler called me. Actual phone call, not text, which meant this was serious. Dude, he said when I answered. Dude. That's a lot of emphasis on dude, I replied calmly. It's your wife. In those screenshots. I just put it together. That's your house. That's her car. Holy shit. Man, are you okay? I let a pause hang there, the kind of pause that says, I'm a man processing devastating information rather than I'm a man who orchestrated this entire situation and is currently enjoying it immensely. Ah, yeah. I saw. Just saw, actually. Bianca's upstairs right now. I don't even know what to say, Tyler. I feel like an idiot. Bro, you're not the idiot here. She is. She's the one who got caught. Everyone's talking about it. Like, everyone. Mrs. Patterson already unfollowed her on Facebook. The Wilsons are posting cryptic quotes about loyalty. It's a whole thing. Jesus, I said, and I didn't have to fake the emotion in my voice because even though this was exactly what I'd planned, hearing it described back to me was surreal. Is everyone going to be talking about this at the party? Are you kidding? This is the party now. Nobody cares about the potluck. Everyone's going to show up just to see what happens. It's like watching a train wreck, except the train is your marriage and we all have front row seats. Sorry, that was insensitive. No, it's accurate, I said. Look, I'll see you there. I need to figure out what to say to Bianca. Good luck, man. Seriously. And hey, if you need anything, I'm here. Beer, couch to crash on, alibi for when you finally snap and set her stuff on fire, whatever. I hung up and sat there in my kitchen, listening to Bianca's muffled voice still on the phone upstairs, probably trying to do damage control on a situation that was way past the point of control. The neighborhood knew. The community knew. By tonight, probably half the town would know because this is exactly the kind of gossip that spreads faster than any virus. At noon, Bianca came back downstairs. She'd changed into jeans and a sweater. Her face was clean of makeup, and she looked like someone who'd been crying or was about to start. I don't think we should go to the block party, she said quietly. Why not? I asked, standing up and grabbing my jacket. Everyone's expecting us. It'd look weird if we didn't show. It'll look weirder if we do show, she hissed. Everyone's seen those pictures. They know. They all know. Know what? I asked, and I let just enough edge into my voice to make her flinch. What exactly do they know, Bianca? She opened her mouth, closed it, and I could see her trying to figure out how to spin this, how to explain it away, how to make herself the victim somehow. It's not what it looks like. Really, I walked toward her slowly. Because it looks like my wife has been letting another man into our house while I'm at work. It looks like she's been lying about where she is and who she's with. It looks like she locked me out in freezing weather while she was probably texting him. So please, enlighten me. What exactly is it if not what it looks like? Her eyes filled with tears, and for a split second, I almost felt bad. Almost. We should talk about this. Privately. Not at a neighborhood party where everyone's going to be staring. Oh, now you want privacy, I said. That's rich. Come on. We're going. You wanted to be the talk of the neighborhood? Congratulations. Let's go give them a show. The block party was exactly as awkward as I'd hoped it would be, which is to say it was spectacularly, magnificently, beautifully uncomfortable for everyone except me. We walked down the street together, Bianca and I, looking like a couple heading to a social event instead of what we actually were, a woman walking toward her public execution and the man who'd built the gallows. The moment we turned the corner onto the main street where they'd set up tables and those sad little decorations that neighborhood committees think make events festive, I felt the energy shift. Conversations didn't exactly stop, but they definitely stuttered. People's eyes tracked us like we were celebrities at a premiere, except instead of admiration, their stares were full of pity, judgment, and that particular kind of excitement people get when they're about to witness drama they can talk about for months. Mrs. Henderson, the self-appointed neighborhood moral authority, actually clutched her pearls. Like, literally reached up and touched her necklace in that way that says, I'm scandalized but also thrilled to have something to be scandalized about. Dave from number 33 gave me this sympathetic nod that somehow managed to communicate both sorry bro and this is wild simultaneously. Jennifer the yoga mom looked away entirely, suddenly very interested in the vegetable platter nobody was eating. Bianca gripped my arm tighter, her nails digging into my jacket. Everyone's staring, she whispered urgently. Are they? I said loudly enough for nearby people to hear. I hadn't noticed. Maybe they're just being friendly. We made it to the food table, and I loaded up a plate with potato salad and whatever casserole the Johnsons had brought that looked like it contained 17 types of cheese and zero nutritional value. Bianca didn't take anything, just stood there looking like she wanted the earth to open up and swallow her whole, which honestly, fair reaction given the circumstances. Tyler appeared at my elbow, beer in hand, looking like he'd been waiting for us to arrive. Hey man, he said, clapping me on the shoulder with just a bit too much force. How you holding up? Oh, you know, I said, taking a bite of casserole. Living the dream. Saturdays are great. Bianca excused herself to go to the bathroom, practically running toward the community center building, and the second she was out of earshot, Tyler leaned in. Dude, she looks miserable. Does she? I watched her retreating form. Huh, weird. Over the next hour, I watched Bianca's social life collapse in real time, and it was honestly more entertaining than anything Netflix had produced all year. Her friend group, those women she'd done book club with, gone to brunch with, posted Instagram stories with, they all suddenly remembered they had somewhere else to be. One by one, they made excuses and left. Oh, I forgot I have a thing. My kid just texted, emergency. I think I left my oven on. Her cousin Sarah, actual cousin, not the fake Oregon one, straight up unfollowed her on social media right there at the party, and I know this because she announced it loudly while standing near the dessert table. I just can't support that kind of behavior, Sarah declared to anyone listening, which was everyone because the whole party had basically become a referendum on Bianca's life choices. The salon owner, Rita, who'd been doing Bianca's hair for 3 years, pulled out her phone and started scrolling through her appointment book. I didn't have to hear the conversation to know what was happening. She was finding creative ways to be fully booked for the foreseeable future. Bianca's hair appointments were apparently getting rescheduled to sometime around 2047. Meanwhile, I was having the time of my life. People kept coming up to me with sympathy and support, treating me like I was some kind of wounded hero instead of the architect of this entire situation. You deserve better, Mrs. Patterson told me, handing me a brownie. She never deserved you, Mike with the loud dog said, offering me a beer. Even Gerald from work showed up. Apparently he lived in the neighborhood. Who knew? And for once, his presence wasn't completely annoying. Linda arrived fashionably late, as planned, carrying a tray of brownies that were, by all accounts, incredible. She gave me the tiniest wink as she passed, so subtle nobody else would have noticed, and I had to suppress a smile. This woman had helped orchestrate a social takedown with the precision of a military operation, all while maintaining perfect plausible deniability and bringing baked goods. Icon behavior. Bianca finally emerged from wherever she'd been hiding and found me surrounded by supportive neighbors. Her face was red, her eyes puffy, and she looked like someone who'd finally realized that actions have consequences, and sometimes those consequences involve becoming a social pariah at a community potluck. Can we go home? She asked quietly, and there was no fight left in her voice. Just defeat. Already, I said, checking my watch. We just got here an hour ago. Don't you want to stay? Catch up with your friends. I gestured to the general area where her former friend group had been, now conspicuously empty. Please, she said, and it came out almost like begging. I looked around at the party, at all these people who now knew the truth, at the kingdom Bianca had built for herself crumbling faster than a sandcastle at high tide. Yeah, I said finally. Let's go home. We walked back in silence, and I could feel her shame radiating off her like heat. By Monday, I knew things would be even worse. The gossip would spread beyond our neighborhood. Her workplace would probably hear about it. That gym where Marcus worked? Someone would definitely make sure they knew. The social consequences were just beginning, and I hadn't even filed for divorce yet. Back home, I made myself comfortable on the couch while Bianca disappeared upstairs, probably to cry or call Marcus or Google how to recover from public humiliation. I pulled out my phone and texted Linda. Mission accomplished. She responded immediately. Told you. Never go halfway. I smiled, turned on the TV, and settled in. For the first time in months, possibly years, I felt completely at peace. My wife's world was falling apart, and mine? Mine was just beginning. 2 weeks later, I moved into a small downtown loft. Nothing fancy, just a studio with exposed brick and windows that actually let in sunlight, which was more than I could say about the emotional darkness I'd been living in for months. The divorce papers were filed, the house was going on the market, and I was officially starting over. 34 years old and rebuilding from scratch, but honestly, I'd never felt lighter. I decided to throw a housewarming party, small, intimate, just real people who'd actually been there for me. Tyler showed up with beer and terrible advice about dating apps. A few coworkers came, some neighbors from the old block who'd taken my side, and Linda, of course, who brought wine that probably cost more than my security deposit. The place was filled with music, laughter, and actual genuine conversation. No more fake smiles, no more pretending everything was fine, no more walking on eggshells around someone who'd checked out of our marriage months ago. Just real people, real connections, and the kind of peace that comes from finally being honest about your life. Halfway through the evening, Linda appeared at my elbow with that knowing smile. "She's downstairs," she said quietly, nodding toward the window. I walked over and looked down at the street. There was Bianca, standing on the sidewalk, staring up at my building with this lost expression. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of consequences had physically diminished her. She was trying to recognize the man I'd become, someone who wasn't waiting around to be treated like an option anymore. The irony wasn't lost on me. For the first time in our entire relationship, I had the key, the warm house, the party, the life. And she was the one standing outside in the cold, locked out, irrelevant. I didn't feel angry looking at her. I didn't feel sad. I just felt done. Completely, utterly done. That chapter was closed, and I was already several pages into a better story. I walked onto my balcony with my drink, and the cool evening air felt refreshing instead of punishing. Bianca looked up from the street below, her eyes full of something that might have been regret, or maybe just confusion about why karma had decided to collect with interest. I raised my glass to her in a silent toast, like a classy villain in a movie who'd just won the final battle without throwing a single punch. No words were necessary. The gesture said everything. "I'm good up here. Thanks for asking." She stood there for another moment, probably waiting for me to come down, to yell, to give her the dramatic confrontation she maybe thought she deserved. But I just turned and walked back inside, back to the warmth, the laughter, the people who actually gave a damn. Linda handed me a fresh glass of wine. "To new beginnings," she said, her eyes sparkling with something that looked like pride. I clinked my glass against hers. "To warm nights and locked doors." My phone buzzed, Bianca's text lighting up the screen. "Why are you doing this?" I smiled and typed back the same line she'd sent me that frozen night. "Come home early next time, winking face." Revenge? Nah. This was justice, served cold, exactly how she'd left me that night. And it tasted absolutely perfect.